Hello, welcome to Crow's Corner. I'm Jenny. In today's episode of the Hogwarts Greenhouse series, I'm making two pieces of furniture. As usual, in the description below, I'll have a link to my Amazon list of supplies I use in this project. If you're just now stumbling across this series, I recommend starting from the beginning. Check out the Hogwarts playlist. It'll be in the description, or you can click the box above. This is the first piece of furniture. It's a simple potting table which consists of a wooden base and a stone or perhaps concrete basin filled with dirt. I'm using sheets of basswood to create the different sides that I will need for the table. And I'm also using these sort of square rectangular dowels. I'm not sure what kind of wood they are. These will be used for the legs. I'm just cleaning up the ends of them by using some sandpaper, making the edges nice and smooth and round. And I just used the legs to create little cutout notches. If you look at the Hogwarts Legacy game, these potting tables just somehow magically hold these concrete basins up. That's magic for you, I guess. But I'm just creating for the top piece. It's almost like the basin just slides right into it. So I'm creating a frame around three sides. This wood definitely wasn't easy to cut through. I had to make several passes to get through it. Rounding off the edges. And then for some added detail, I'm using these little wooden coffee stir sticks. I love these. These are super easy to cut. I probably could have used a pair of scissors. I didn't really need this tool, but I had it out, so I used it to get a good, nice angle there, 45-degree angle. It doesn't take much on these little small miniatures to give them some extra detail, but the detail does go a long way in making them look more realistic. Throughout this project, I use Gorilla Wood glue to put all of this together. For the legs, I start by figuring out, how big I want the base, the bottom of it to be. And it's a little bit longer than what the top will be. And I want these to be very decorative. And I'm creating some kind of little spiral. It's very organic. I wanted it to look like that. I couldn't really tell by the screenshots from the game that I was using as reference what exactly the legs looked like on the potting tables, but I liked this sort of spirally vine-like organic shape that I came up with. And I'm just using my knife to create a initial cut that will make it easier for me to whittle this down. There's a little bit of a learning curve for me. I have done some whittling in the past, but it's been a long time. And I had to sort of reteach myself how to use my knife here safely and figure out how it worked best with such a tiny piece of wood. That was the biggest factor, I think, was how small this piece of wood was. I have this tool that has sort of a raspy texture on it, and so I use that to file this down and get a nice smooth curve to my little twisty decorative leg. And the final step was to use some sandpaper to get it nice and smooth. And I did this for all four of the legs. I was really happy with how this turned out. And then it was just a matter of assembling the whole thing. You have to make sure that you're getting these legs on there really straight or the top doesn't line up. And as I was going along, after I would hold the leg in place for a few seconds, the wood glue really did grip it, and I didn't need to hold it for very long. But I would recommend wiping off any excess glue that kind of squishes out, because that can be hard to paint later. And if your legs are straight, the top should line up well. You should be able to stick it right on top of there. Now I'm going to rough up the wood a little bit. These have been well worn and used, and just creating some scratches in various directions to make it look a little bit more old and worn. Using a little bit of light and dark brown to create a warm wood color as the base. And then I kind of water it down just to make it more like a wood stain, less like solid paint. I'm using the other potting bench that I made as a reference, and the base coat is much warmer and cleaner. So this is just the first step in creating the right patina. Now I'm giving it a bit of a dirty wash. Again, my trick to this is just take your old paint water. You can add a little brown and black in there if you want, but just really, really, really just get some gunky old paint water is the key to this. Probably, after you've been painting a while, you know what I'm talking about. Your water gets really gross. That's pretty much all I use here, just maybe adding a little bit of extra brown or black. And I wipe it off. I don't leave it really super saturated. I put it in the spots that I think might have extra dirt or have not been cleaned well. And so these are distress oxide. I believe they're mainly used for stamps, but I love to use them as stains. They're some of my favorite things. They're not super cheap, but they're well worth it. They last forever. And I just have like four different colors here: a sort of dark brown, a weathered wood gray, and a couple of different greens to represent kind of a mossy moldy look, and I think they really do help to make it look more realistic. They definitely tone down the color of the wood. This color really does a lot for making the wood look sort of bleached and age worn. I love how this turned out. Now I'm using some craft foam to create the shape of the basin, you could use maybe some stiffer, I don't know, like cereal board. The only thing is with cardboard or paper-based products, they might get a little wet with the next step, but this foam works really well. So I created the base of the basin. That's weird to say, but the base of the basin, and then I made the top piece by outlining the base, so I know exactly how big the hole for the top needs to be. And then I just, sketched a rim around the edge of that. I probably made this one a little too wide. You'll see when I get it done. It's a little bit wider than the first one I made, but that's okay. I'm not too bothered about that. And then just cut out some little strips that are the height of what you want your basin to be. These strips really needed to be longer, but this foam that I had, I didn't have anything longer than what I did, so I ended up having to cut out a couple of pieces and attaching them together. And I'm using some Gorilla Super Glue to hold this in place. It dries really quickly. And once you get the strips all the way around, then you can place the top on. It's a very simple shape to make. And so I'm using some sand, some Mod Podge glue, and some stucco or drywall patch composite. And you mix the three of those together. I sort of do like a 1 to 1 to 1 ratio. And I'm using this to build up a concrete or stone looking facade around this. So all around, every single side of this needs to be coated in this mixture. And then actually it needs to dry, and you'll have to do like another 1 or 2 coats depending on the thickness of your mixture. But once you get this all completely covered and it dries, it creates a really, really cool sort of concrete or stone texture. And then you paint it with a base coat of dark gray to begin with. And then a loose top coat, kind of dry brushed with the lighter gray. That really brings out the texture, the rough texture. And then again, using my Distress Oxide, I put some light tan, I think it's maybe called antique linen, and then some green to give it a little bit of a mossy look. And I probably could have even made this one a little bit dirtier. You can see compared to the other one that I made in a second, I need to dirty it up, and I end up doing that off camera. So again, as I always say, it's really easy to make this dirt mixture. It's just coffee grounds and some Mod Podge glue. Use a little bit of craft glue or Eileen's tacky glue to put around the edges of this, and then I just slide it into place. This is the second piece of furniture. It's a potting table as well, but it has a little bit of storage. And again, using basswood to create this. Outlining where the legs are going to be. Using these little square dowels to create the legs. You can see I'm using a little paper template. I just made this so that I knew like the height that I wanted it to be and the width and length that I wanted it to be. The legs are much more simple on this table. I gave these side pieces a little bit of a decorative top. Just adding a little bit more age to the piece. Just adding a little piece of wood underneath it just to make sure that it's level as it's drying. cabinet's going to be off center, so this middle piece should be slightly to the right. I'm adding in the shelves. And this piece is going to be the top of the cabinet side. It's level with the top shelf on the left. And for the front of the cabinet, for the doors, I decided since it wasn't ever going to be opened to just make the doors out of one piece of wood. I start by drawing a line down the center and then score that line and score it on the left and the right side of the line. And then I can, with my knife at an angle, I can just sort of cut off the top part or the top layer of this wood. I'm not cutting all the way through. It gives it the illusion of two doors. Roughing that up. And then using the coffee stir sticks again to create some decorative pieces on top. There was something a little bit off about this to me, so I decided to add long strip of wood underneath the tabletop area all the way around. It just sort of finished the piece off and made it look a little bit more like realistic furniture to me. And then again, for this piece, just like the other piece, I start by making a sort of warm brown base. And the whole process of painting and staining this is similar to the other piece. I put the warm undertone on first, then I give it a dirty wash with my dirty paint water, and then I use my Distress Oxide colors to give it a little bit more patina. When you're placing your aging colors or your dirty wash on there, try to think about all the little nooks and crannies where maybe it hasn't been cleaned in a while, or maybe it's the places that people with dirty fingers are touching it a lot, or maybe the pot is sitting. So think about that kind of thing when you're adding in the distress colors, and that will make it much more realistic. There is one more step to this, and that's to give the doors some handles. So I had a really, really old earring that I took apart because it had some wooden beads on it, and those beads were the perfect size for the door handles. So just add a little tiny drop of wood glue to the spots that you want the handles to be and place them on there. And I want to thank you again for watching this series with me. And if you've missed out on the other episodes, you can check those out on the Hogwarts Greenhouse playlist. And please subscribe and like this video. It really helps me out a lot and I appreciate it. Every single one of you, thank you so much.